Hello, friends. Today we delve into a family's haunting holiday tradition that conceals a chilling secret. This story revolves around Eleanor, a mother trapped in the facade of joy while shadows linger in her home. Behind the twinkling lights and festive decor lies an unspoken darkness that threatens to unravel everything they hold dear. Watch closely. The air was crisp as Eleanor pulled into the driveway of their family home. The familiar sight of the grand, old structure wrapping around her like a warm, albeit suffocating blanket. The house stood steeped in tradition, draped in twinkling lights that flickered like fragile hopes against the drab winter sky. She inhaled deeply, trying to imprint the scent of pine and cinnamon that danced in the frosty air. It was a scent that once filled her with joy. But today, it felt like a bittersweet reminder of the past. As she stepped out of the car, Eleanor forced a smile onto her face, the kind that had become second nature over the years. "It'll be fine," she murmured to herself, though the weight in her chest begged to differ. Her family, her husband David, and their teenage daughter Sophie, followed suit, their movements synchronized yet detached, as if they were actors in a play rehearsed too many times. Inside, the living room awaited them, a scene straight from a holiday card. The Christmas tree stood proud in the corner, adorned with glimmering ornaments that twinkled in the soft glow of the fireplace. It was beautiful. Yet beneath its shimmering facade, Eleanor felt the tension coiling tighter. Each ornament seemed to mock her, a representation of moments they had crafted together, now overshadowed by the silence that had seeped into their lives like a slow poison. "Let's start the traditions," David exclaimed, his voice buoyant yet hollow, the cheerfulness sticking in Eleanor's throat like a stubborn lump. She caught his eye, searching for a flicker of the warmth that had once ignited their love. Instead, she found only the remnants of unspoken guilt, swimming just beneath the surface. Sophie's eyes darted between her parents, her brow furrowing as though she could sense the storm brewing within them. Eleanor wanted to reach out, to reassure her daughter that everything was okay, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she busied herself with the decorations, arranging the ornaments with meticulous care, as if the act itself could mend the fractures in their family. Margaret arrived shortly after, her presence a beacon of familiarity amidst the gathering gloom. "I can't believe we're doing this again," she said, her voice light. But Eleanor caught the edge in it, an acknowledgement of the truth hidden behind festive smiles. "You all look lovely," she added, her gaze lingering on Eleanor, searching for the unspoken. As they began to sing carols, the notes hung heavily in the air, a fragile harmony that did little to mask the dissonance beneath. Eleanor's heart raced as she watched Sophie sing, her daughter's face lit with a tentative smile that faded too quickly when David's fleeting gaze wandered to the empty chair by the fireplace. It was a stark reminder of the absence that loomed over them, a ghost lingering in the shadows of their holiday cheer. Eleanor felt the weight of unspoken words pressing against her chest, each note a reminder of the secrets she carried. Can they truly maintain this illusion of family happiness, while a storm of buried pain raged just beneath the surface? She wanted to believe it was possible, that silence could shield them, but doubt gnawed at her. With every passing moment, the facade began to crack. Cold exchanges slipped into their conversations, the warmth of holiday cheer turning brittle like the branches of the tree that stood witness to their struggles. Margaret caught Eleanor's eye, a silent inquiry that begged for the truth to emerge, as if she could sense the churning turmoil within her sister. As the evening wore on, the laughter felt forced, the smiles painted on with a brush dipped in denial. Eleanor clutched a mug of steaming cider, its warmth seeping into her hands. Yet she felt colder than ever. She glanced at David, a fleeting image of what was and what could never be again, flickering in her mind. The unspoken truth weighed heavy in the air, the fear of confrontation freezing her in place. Eleanor's heart pounded as her eyes drifted back to the Christmas tree, a symbol of their supposed unity. The ornaments sparkled, but they felt like shards of glass, reflecting the fractured pieces of their lives. And in that moment, Eleanor realized that the silence she clung to was not a shield. It was a shackle, binding her to a past she could no longer ignore. The questions lingered in the air, unasked and unanswered. Could they preserve this fragile illusion of happiness? Or was it doomed to shatter beneath the weight of unacknowledged pain? The living room was aglow with the soft, twinkling lights of the Christmas tree, its branches adorned with shimmering ornaments that reflected the flickering flames of the fireplace. A heady scent of pine mingled with the faint smell of cinnamon cookies wafting from the kitchen, where Eleanor had spent the morning baking, hoping to reignite the warmth of holiday traditions. Yet, as the family gathered around the tree, the atmosphere felt more like a fragile illusion than a festive celebration. Eleanor stood back, a strand of twinkling lights in her hands, her heart heavy with unspoken words. She watched David as he carefully hung an ornament, a glass reindeer that had been a staple of their family for years. Its familiar presence should have brought comfort, but instead, it acted as a chilling reminder of the distance that had grown between them. Each delicate click of the ornament against the tree felt like a sharp reminder of the secrets that lingered just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to shatter their fragile facade. "Mom, can you pass me that star?" Sophie's voice cut through the silence, a note of impatience threading through her request. The teenage girl, perched on the edge of the couch, seemed caught between the innocence of childhood and the weight of burgeoning awareness. Her eyes darted between Eleanor and David, sensing the tension that hung like an uninvited guest in the room. There was a tightness around her lips, a slight furrow in her brow, a silent acknowledgement of something unsaid. Eleanor offered the star, her fingers brushing against Sophie's, and for a fleeting moment, a flicker of connection sparked, but it quickly dissipated as Sophie turned her gaze to the tree, focusing intently on positioning the star just right, as if that small act could somehow realign their fractured family. Eleanor could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on her chest, the urge to maintain the facade of unity gnawing at her insides. "Looks wonderful, doesn't it?" David's voice was too bright, too forced. He stepped back to admire the tree, his smile strained, as if he were trying to convince not just his family, but himself, that everything was fine. Eleanor's stomach churned. How long could they keep this charade going? The star glinted in the light, a beacon of hope and hypocrisy all at once. "Yeah," Sophie replied, her voice muted as she stepped back to join her father. The distance between them felt palpable, a chasm widened by unspoken truths. Eleanor clenched the lights in her hands, feeling their sharp edges dig into her palm. She wondered if anyone could see through the glittering exterior to the frayed edges beneath. Could they go on pretending that everything was fine? Or would the truth inevitably claw its way to the surface? Margaret entered the room, her brow furrowed, assessing the scene with keen eyes. She sensed the tension, but chose not to address it directly. Instead, she reached for a handful of ornaments, her movements casual. But her gaze lingered on Eleanor for just a moment too long. "Let's get this tree looking perfect," she declared, a cheery attempt to uplift the mood. But her voice wavered slightly, an unintentional crack appearing in the veneer of holiday cheer. As the branches of the tree filled with ornaments and memories, Eleanor felt the weight of silence pressing heavily against her. She glanced at David, who caught her gaze, a flicker of guilt passing between them, like a ghost. He quickly looked away, his hands busy with a particularly stubborn ornament. The unspoken truth loomed large, heavy with the potential to unravel everything they had built. In the corner of the room, the unopened letter lay hidden beneath layers of wrapping paper, a physical manifestation of all the things they had failed to address. Would it always remain there, a silent witness to their denial? As the final ornament was hung, the family stepped back to admire their work. But the beauty of the tree felt overshadowed by the darkness of their secrets. Eleanor's heart raced, a tumult of emotions swelling within her. The facade of joy felt increasingly fragile, teetering on the edge of collapse. How long could they uphold this illusion of unity in the face of gathering storms? The question hung in the air, heavy and unyielding, as the laughter from the kitchen faded into a tense silence, leaving only the rustle of wrapping paper and the distant crackle of the fire in its wake. The living room was adorned with flickering lights, and the scent of pine hung heavy in the air. A facade of holiday cheer meticulously crafted to conceal the shadows lurking just beneath the surface. Eleanor stood by the Christmas tree, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the ornaments. Each bauble reflected a different version of reality, a sparkly distraction from the truth she couldn't bring herself to voice. "David, can you pass me the silver star?" she called out, her voice crisp and formal, a thin veneer of cheer masking the tension that permeated the room. The air felt thick, as if it were holding its breath, and she could sense the unspoken words lingering just beyond the edge of her consciousness. David, standing a few feet away, hesitated before responding. "Sure, Eleanor." He reached into the box, his fingers brushing against the cool metal, but his eyes remained on the floor, avoiding hers. The distance between them felt like a chasm, each moment of silence stretching into eternity, filled with things that should have been said. Sophie entered, her presence a stark contrast to the brittle atmosphere. "Isn't it beautiful?" she remarked, nodding towards the tree, her voice light. But Eleanor could see the flicker of uncertainty in her daughter's gaze. The teenager's eyes darted between her parents, searching for unspoken truths hidden beneath the brightly wrapped packages and twinkling lights. "Beautiful," David echoed, a note of tension creeping into his voice. He forced a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, the corners of his mouth twitching awkwardly as he looked at Eleanor. The empty chair in the corner loomed larger, a silent witness to the betrayal that had shattered their family's image of happiness. Margaret entered, sensing the charged atmosphere. "What a lovely tree," she chimed, her tone bright but her eyes narrowing slightly as she took in the scene. "I remember when we used to make a big deal out of decorating together. A hint of familiarity, an invitation to nostalgia. But the memories felt tainted now, overshadowed by the weight of unsaid words." Eleanor felt her heart race. "We still can," she offered, forcing a smile that cracked under the pressure. "Traditions are important." A hollow statement, echoing in the silence that followed, the very air around them heavy with invisible burdens. "Right," David replied, his voice flat. "Traditions." He turned away, pretending to examine the tree with exaggerated interest. But Eleanor caught the flicker of guilt in his eyes before he masked it with indifference. "Mom, can you help me with this ornament?" Sophie's voice broke through the tension, her attempt to bridge the gap palpable. Eleanor nodded, stepping toward her daughter, but the distance felt insurmountable. As she reached for the ornament, her fingers brushed against Sophie's. and for a fleeting moment, the connection felt real, a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters. But the moment passed, leaving only the echo of their shared silence. Eleanor's gaze flicked to David, who stood apart, the unspoken accusations hanging like a storm cloud between them. How long could they continue this charade? How long could the mask of politeness conceal the roiling emotions beneath? She felt the pull of the empty chair, a reminder of the truth that loomed just beyond their grasp, threatening to unravel the fragile seams of their family tapestry. "Eleanor," Margaret's voice cut through the fog. "Are you okay?" The concern in her sister's tone was a gentle prod, a challenge to the status quo. Eleanor's heart raced, each pulse a reminder of the truth she buried deep within. "Of course," she replied, but the words tasted bitter on her tongue. The question hung in the air, unasked but heavy. How long could silence be a shield before it became a weapon? The lights on the tree glittered mockingly, a splendid facade concealing the cracks that threatened to shatter their world. The room draped in twinkling lights felt both festive and suffocating, as if the very air had thickened with the weight of unspoken truths. Sophie stood by the window, her breath fogging the glass as she peered out at the snowflakes swirling in the cold December air. Each flake danced with a kind of freedom she felt trapped without, a silent rebellion against the heavy silence that blanketed her family gathering. "Can you help me with the decoration, Sophie?" Her mother's voice broke through, a soft plea wrapped in a layer of brittle cheer. Eleanor smiled, but there was a tremor in it, a crack that betrayed the carefully constructed facade. Sophie turned away from the window, a reticence coiling in her gut. The Christmas tree stood adorned with ornaments, each a fragment of their past, every glittering surface reflecting moments of laughter and joy, now overshadowed by a pulsing tension. "Sure," she murmured, her voice barely escaping her lips. As she approached the tree, the ornaments felt heavier, each one a reminder of the family they used to be. She reached for a delicate glass star, its edges sharp and fragile, mirroring the fragility of her own resolve. David entered the room, his demeanor too casual, as if he could brush off the shadows lurking in the corners. "Looking great, huh?" he said, forcing a chuckle that felt like shards of glass. Sophie couldn't meet his eyes. Instead, she focused on hanging the star, a silent ritual that felt increasingly hollow. The laughter that once flowed so easily among them had become a strained whisper, buried beneath the weight of secrets. "Everything all right, Soph?" David asked, his tone too light, as if trying to pierce the growing silence with forced normalcy. The question lay thick in the air, an invitation for truth that Sophie didn't know how to accept. Instead, she nodded, her heart pounding against her ribcage, a quiet rebellion brewing inside her. She felt the walls of the room closing in, the warmth of the lights contrasting sharply with the chill that spread through her, echoing the snow outside. Sophie's eyes darted to Margaret, who lingered at the edge of the room, observing with a knowing gaze. There was an intensity in her expression, a silent understanding that Sophie craved yet feared to confront. Margaret's presence was both comforting and unnerving, a silent plea for Sophie to share the burden she carried alone. The laughter of distant relatives floated through the house, a stark contrast to the silence enveloping her immediate family. Sophie felt like an outsider, a ghost haunting the remnants of what was once a vibrant home. Her mind raced with questions that clawed at her insides. How long could they pretend? How long before the silence shattered? As David and Eleanor exchanged strained pleasantries, Sophie caught snippets of their conversation, the undertones laden with implications that felt unjust. The tension coiled tighter, her heart a drum echoing the unvoiced fears that lingered like wisps of smoke. Unspoken words had become the air they breathed, and each silent moment felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. Then, in a moment of quiet defiance, Sophie let the star slip from her fingers. It fell to the ground with a shattering sound that pierced the air, fracturing the fragile silence. All eyes turned to her, surprise mingling with discomfort as shards of glass scattered around her feet. Sharp, glittering pieces of a perfect illusion now ruptured. "Sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. The weight of her unvoiced torment threatened to spill over, but she swallowed it down. The room held its breath, tension coiling like a spring about to snap. How long could she bear this pain of silence, she wondered, without losing herself entirely? The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the quiet shadows of unspoken truths loomed larger than ever. The door creaked open, and the chill of the outside air slipped into the cozy living room, a sharp contrast to the carefully curated warmth of the holiday decorations. Margaret stepped inside, shaking off snowflakes with an exaggerated flourish, her laughter ringing like a bell. Bright, yet oddly discordant in the heavy atmosphere. Eleanor stood by the Christmas tree, its twinkling lights casting flickering shadows that danced across her face, masking the turmoil within her. "Eleanor, it's so good to see you," Margaret exclaimed, her arms wide as she enveloped her sister in an enthusiastic embrace. Eleanor's tension coiled tighter, her smile brittle as she returned the hug, feeling the weight of unspoken words pressing down like a winter blanket. As the initial greetings faded, the warmth of the room felt suffocating. Eleanor resumed her place by the tree, adjusting an ornament that had hung askew, a futile attempt to impose order on her internal chaos. Margaret's gaze flicked to Sophie, who had ceased her ornament arranging, her hands frozen mid-air. The tension in the room thickened, and suddenly, the unopened letter felt as heavy as a brick. "Have you been enjoying the festive season?" Margaret asked, her tone light but her eyes searching. "I hope David's been helping out. It's important to have a united front, especially for Sophie." Eleanor's heart thudded painfully in her chest. He's trying," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, a taut thread of honesty strained against the weight of her concealed fears. "Oh, I'm sure," Margaret said, her smile unwavering but her brow furrowing. "But are you okay? I mean, really okay? You seem different." The question hung in the air, a fragile glass ornament poised on the edge of a shelf, ready to shatter. Eleanor felt the walls of her defenses begin to crumble under Margaret's scrutiny, each question a hammer striking at the brittle facade she had so meticulously maintained. The unopened letter, tucked away in her drawer, loomed large in her mind, a symbol of everything she had chosen to bury, a reminder of the truth that was festering beneath the surface. Sophie shifted in her seat, her eyes flickering between her mother and aunt. She could feel the undercurrents, the unspoken words that twisted like vines around her heart. The atmosphere felt charged, raw, and heavy, as if the very air was waiting for the dam to break. "Eleanor," Margaret pressed, her voice firm yet laced with compassion. "You need to confront this, whatever it is. Secrets don't just vanish because we ignore them. They fester and grow." The air crackled with tension, a palpable electricity that made Eleanor's skin prickle. She felt the walls of her carefully constructed facade beginning to crack. "What if talking about it only makes things worse?" Eleanor murmured, her voice trembling on the brink of a confession. Margaret's eyes softened, but her resolve remained firm. Or it might be the first step to healing. You can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Not for yourself, not for Sophie. The empty chair loomed larger, a reminder of the trust that had shattered, leaving only shards of what once was. Eleanor's heart ached at the thought, but she grasped the threads of hope beginning to weave through their fractured family. "We can't ignore what happened, and we can't erase the pain," she said, her voice gaining strength. "But we can choose to face it together. I just want us to be okay," she admitted, her voice cracking. Eleanor reached out, pulling Sophie into a gentle embrace. "We will be, sweetheart. It's going to take time, but we will find our way back to each other." As they held each other, a fragile sense of unity began to flicker in the space around them, a glimmer of hope against the backdrop of their complicated reality. But the question lingered, unspoken yet palpable. Could this family truly find the strength to rebuild, to face the darkness together and emerge into the light? The empty chair remained, a symbol of loss, yet also of the potential for renewal. If only they dared to confront the truths that lay beneath the surface.